I think being a chef or being a farmer, you both have a huge responsibility as far as your local food system goes. That if you're committed to supplying local restaurants or you're committed to buying from local farmers, then the pathway is there to build and to grow and to better support each other.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to CNG Field Notes. This podcast is rooted in the unique experience of our certification's peer review inspections. Our goal is to capture that farmer-to-farmer knowledge exchange we see happening at the local level and share it across our CNG network and beyond. I'm your host, Erin Torgerson, CNG's Certification Specialist and Programs Coordinator. We are so thrilled to be back recording some field note conversations after taking a little bit of a hiatus over the winter season. And by winter season, we mean conference season in the sustainable ag work. I was able to attend quite a few conferences this winter, and it was incredible to connect with so many like-minded growers in person and gain loads of knowledge and ideas to take forward. Our goal for Field Notes is really to capture a lot of that conference spirit and to get a chance to dig into a topic with some really knowledgeable folks who've got the lived experience to back it up. And today we're doing just that. We're going to be joined by CNG members Cory Babb of Firelight Farm in Searcy, Arkansas, and Mike Garcia of Ever Oak Farm in Orlando, Florida. Cory and Mike have really similar paths, kind of starting out in the culinary field and then transitioning to farming the real fields. So we thought, what better guest to talk about selling to restaurants than these two farmers who have played both roles. But before we dive too deep, we want to give a huge thank you to the kind folks over at Earth Tools for making this episode possible. Earth Tools offers farmer-tested, high-quality walk-behind tractors and attachments built for small-scale, diversified farms. Rooted in decades of hands-on growing experience, growing food, and selling to local markets, they prioritize durable equipment, practical versatility, and exceptional service. Their tools are designed to maximize efficiency without large-scale investment, making them the trusted resource for market growers and homesteaders looking to work smarter. So please visit earthtools.com to find tools that will make your farm work a whole lot easier. We'd also like to send a huge thank you to Jeremy Varon for writing our new theme music. It's been a lot of fun to see this podcast really come into its own with each new episode, and we're looking forward to the kind of progression and evolution and all the rich conversations to come. But for now, let's get into this conversation with chef-turned-farmers Mike and Cory. Okay, well, so thank you so much, Mike and Cory, for being here today and joining us on Field Notes. So we're going to kind of start it off the way we usually do by kind of getting into like how you got to where you are today, the kind of origin story. So, Mike, do you want to start us off of how you kind of got where you
Yeah,
are today?
yeah, totally. So my background in food and getting into farming started, I always tell folks back in culinary school. So I started when culinary school back in 2008 and then wrapped up at the beginning of 2010 and jumped into restaurants.
Mhm.
Cooking in and around town, I just was starting like wondering out, like being in the kitchen, produce magically appears in the back of the kitchen. And it's like, man, what like how did it get here? How was this case of tomatoes grown, carrots, whatnot, and just started questioning our whole food system and just diving deep into agriculture and just started studying every form of agriculture, to conventional industrial grain farming to community-based agriculture and everything else in between. And also I was going through some big lifestyle changes and trying to make more healthy choices and whatnot. So I picked up backyard gardening
Mhm.
in 2012 and just started with a little 4x8 garden bed. And then over the years, just thriving towards becoming a chef and growing my garden. And then over the years, it's just I started becoming, the more I became educated in agriculture and the more skilled I became in gardening, I had more of a passion. That passion of cooking really went towards growing because having this full grasp that agriculture has an environmental and a health impact. And at that time too, and still today, I feel like there's more chefs than there's farmers, and I feel like we need more farmers than we do chefs. The ratio is totally off. And just to be able to have that bridge to and get more into community-based farming and have that bridge to bring education and awareness to daily people, to our consumers, just to understand that on a daily basis, you're always interacting with agriculture, like to pharmaceuticals, to the stuff you wear and the stuff that we use to nourish our body. So knowing that people don't know enough farmers in their network, that's where I was like, okay, I'm done cooking. Also, I wanted a little bit more of a wholesome lifestyle that's more in that natural rhythm. Um, and working in kitchens puts a huge, even though farming can put a huge strain in your body, working in kitchens even more so, fluorescent lights, hard floors, long nights. I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't want to continue this path. So understanding that, I was like, I'm gonna start farming. So 2015, I started my first market garden. And in between learning, I'm totally self-taught, just picked up some books, read a lot of literature online, a lot of YouTube University, and just put it to practice. So meanwhile, I would garden in the morning and then cook at night. It wasn't until 2019 that I made that full transition out of the kitchen and started farming full time. And that's when towards Ever Oak Farm really coming to fruition.
Mhm.
So before that, I had two other entities that I did previously. But yeah, that's a little bit of my origin story.
Sweet. Thank you for
Uh,
sharing. Excited to dive more into that as we get going.
uh,
Cory, do you want to tell us how you got here?
Yeah, I think, I definitely started in the kitchens as well. My first kitchen job was when I was 15. And when I took a culinary program in high school as well. And even, starting in college, I didn't think that I was going to make the food system world my career. I thought I was going to be a physical therapist, but just kept cooking in small restaurants to kind of keep paying the bills and pay for tuition and whatnot. And then, in some conversations after my freshman year of college, I was realizing that, like, oh, huh, I could I could make a career out of this. So, and Montana State had a sustainable food and bioenergy systems major. So I jumped into that, and that was a lot of nutrition coursework, some food policy, and then a fair amount of small scale ag production stuff, which was great. I realized that I enjoyed that, but I still just kept cooking. Really enjoyed the restaurant side of things and working in restaurants that were sourcing locally as much as we could, which was fun to see and fun to be a part of. Worked on a couple farms through college, but still focused on that culinary side of the world, which took me to Portland, Oregon. I worked in a very fast-paced farm-to-table restaurant called Ava Jean's, and then from there, we moved to coastal California down to a town called Ojai, where I ran a farm to table restaurant for 3 years. And I could just walk my little cart down to the farmer's market every Sunday morning. And, we had a handful of farms that we could source from throughout the week locally. But even then, it was like, I still felt like I was really enjoying the cooking side of things. You get really wrapped up in that. But then COVID hit, and we quickly realized that, it was a lot. It was managing a staff of 20 plus employees, a restaurant that was open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner services. It was too much. And we wanted to get closer to family. So my wife grew up in Arkansas and her family was out here. So we just pulled the trigger and dove back here, and it's been a learning curve and growth ever since. But yeah, this is our fifth growing season here on
uh,
Firelight Farm.
That's awesome.
that is.
Such a cool story, both of you. And
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I guess for the sake of the conversation that I didn't, I have a similar background of going to culinary school, working in restaurants, and getting into farming. And so, yeah, it's nice to be around some kindred
Mhm.
spirits here.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess, yeah, one thing that was really impactful to me when I started working on farms after working in kitchens was that there's kind of some through lines as far as like pacing and how you like organize your day. Do you want to talk about that? The kind of similarities between working in a kitchen and working in a farm? Mike, you have anything?
Um, the similarities, yeah, long days, the timelines of staying on diligent on your plans. I always feel like there's a lot of correlation, and I still have like a soft spot for restaurant culture, and I'm always trying to think like, how does that overlap? And this is a thought that I always have, like overlapping that restaurant culture to farm culture. Because I have this idea of like having more neighborhood farms, just like we have neighborhood restaurants. And how do you transition that or make that happen and get more folks into it? So like in restaurants, you have saging, like people to go different restaurants, you sage, you learn, you work underneath that chef. And I like this idea to create that type of culture
Mhm.
of like people looking out for farmers. Like I like their styles, I like the techniques that they're implementing. Let me go work under them for a couple of years and then take what I need to learn from them and then move on and do my own thing.
Mhm.
But going back to like those correlations of restaurants and that, um, long days on your foot, schedules, working with a team. Um, uh, Yeah, I don't, and every farm and restaurant's different. So I guess it depends on what, are we talking about like a small food pop-up, or are we talking about a large restaurant that's high volume, or are we talking about fine dining? Because I also feel like you see this correlation in different farms. You have farms that are like super tight, clean lines. I look at those at the all white chefs that keep those tight, clean, orderly kitchens, and then you see some chefs are or some farmers that are very off the cuff, free flowing, don't mind things being a little wild. Same like I don't know, there's different personalities within it. So I might be trailing off from this question, but yeah, that's I guess that's all I have to rant about that.
I love that. I like, yeah,
Yeah.
the stage. I've never thought about staging and how that could correlate to farming. Because yeah, for those that don't know the word stage, is kind of like doing an internship at a restaurant. And I know some folks that have just like bought an RV for a summer and just like drove across the country to visit other farms they really admire. And
And
um,
there's young cooks and chefs that have done that too, that they jump across
Yep,
country and
yep.
want to learn the chef. So I
exactly.
I kind of want to bring that culture,
Hmm.
like the healthy side, the healthy culture of restaurants, into that farming to get people into this. Because people like I went to culinary school and I hate the fact that I went to culinary school. I wish I would have just jumped right into it and just learned from the bottom up. And I never went to any form of school of agriculture or anything. I just read a few literature and just put it into practice and just learn as I went. And I wish I had the opportunity to work under other farmers, but there's not a lot of small scale farms here and where we're at in Florida. But I always now think, and that's why I have like an apprenticeship program to encourage that, like, hey, come if you want to learn what I do, if you're into what I'm doing. Like, I'm hoping to at least share my skills, ideologies, and techniques that you can go and at least have some sort of foundation to start your own. Because I feel like that's why you have so many restaurants nowadays. You just have so many inspiring chefs out there that refine their techniques that um that people went out looking for that and then they learned and worked with a few chefs and then they took that and did that. So why can't we bring that into the farming culture? And then I
Yeah.
also have this idea. It's like I love reading cookbooks and chef stories of cookbooks and their recipes. And to bring in that culture, it's like, why don't we have farm books and
Yeah.
talking about the farm stories and techniques that they implement, their influence, how they do it. Because there's so many beautiful, unique ways of in this small scale regenerative agriculture realm of going about doing this. It's just understanding your context to go about doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah, hopefully I'm
definitely.
not
No, that,
trailing off from the original question.
I think like most farms too, I would be very open to if someone just kind of reached out and said, "Hey, could I come for a weekend and help out?" They'd be
Yeah.
down. So to reach out to people. Cory, what are your kind of relations between working on a kitchen to working on a farm?
yeah, I think, I mean, in a more structured sense, I think making your to-do list every day and figuring out your priorities and seeing how those change throughout the day and kind of reassessing what you need to get done. I really appreciate that you're not working towards a fixed start of service for the most part, or at least on a daily basis. You're able to focus on one or two delivery days a week, one market day, what have you. It's not so ready to go and things like that. But yeah, I think at the same time, I had this conversation with a former chef at the farmers market last week, who now is my irrigation designer. But just talking about sense of urgency with your staff and kind of balancing that line of like, yes, I need you to get things done urgently, but at the same time, like there's a reason we're no longer in this fast-paced, high-stress culinary realm. Like you can want your team to get things done faster, but you know, I'm never going to yell at anyone for not moving fast enough. It's a balance.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. But
Yeah, that's
to Mike's point there, yeah.
the delicate thing to try to train both in the kitchen and both in the farm. But yeah, it's nice that there's a little less pressure on the farm, but still that like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
if it takes you 2 hours to harvest 25 bunches of turnips, that you're not making any money on those turnips. So
Yes.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
cool. What was like the
But we've
biggest
built a lot
shock?
of that.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just thinking we've built a lot into our systems, thinking of like the way we build a workflow around the kitchen, the same way we'll build the processes around the farm,
Hmm.
and how we get things done, how we delegate tasks. So I think having that skill set from the kitchen and kind of constantly thinking of like, is there a faster way to do this? Is there a more efficient way to do this? Can we reward each other for being more efficient? That's kind of the constant kind of thought process throughout the year. And each season we change that even more.
Yeah. What was like the biggest shock kind of coming? I mean, obviously, you kind of already mentioned like, nicer schedule, you're not working longer nights, but was there any yeah, kind of big surprise of like you're in the restaurant mindset and then you switch to farming, you're like, whoa, I didn't even consider this kind of way of thinking until I started farming.
Because after you spend 10 years in the restaurant industry, I feel like you could pretty much take on everything. Like, especially I've worked in all different scale level, different concepts and whatnot. And it was such an ease into it. Like, I don't think you're used to putting in long days on your feet. Like it translates to the same. The only difference is you don't have to deal with very needy customers, and you're just dealing with the natural order of some things that are just out of our control.
Yeah.
Which has always been my thing. I'd rather deal with a hurricane than a customer complaining that their steak wasn't cooked perfectly, even though it could be a textbook perfect mid rare or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
What about you, Corey?
Yeah, I think on that same note, this like the level of stress can rise at time on the farm for sure, but I think you're much more prepared to juggle these things, knowing that you have dealt with similar or worse challenges in the past. But yeah, I think on one hand, it's almost harder for me at times to deal with those things that are out of my control. Relying on weather, I want to have control. I want to control our systems as much as we can. So just letting go is probably the hardest thing on some parts. So like, that
yeah.
we couldn't win that battle, but
I think
we tried.
farming definitely teaches that to learn to sometimes you just gotta let go and let it be and just go with
Yep,
it.
yep,
Hmm.
yep.
I think the
And
time it takes to learn things was my biggest realization. I remember like one farmer I worked for, he was like, I've been planting garlic for 10 years, so that means I've only planted garlic 10 times. And you're like, when you're in a kitchen, if you don't know how to do something, you get a lot of
um,
chances really quick to try to figure it out because it doesn't work
Hmm.
and you try again right away.
that is so
So,
true. Yeah, if you miss
yeah.
your window of opportunity in the season, you gotta wait till the next season to try it out again, or fulfill this season versus cooking. You're like, I could work on my knife skill in limited time. I could learn this technique in a limited amount of time. Farming is a little bit more slow pace of learning these techniques and methods and that rhythm. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if either of you have ever tried to surf.
no.
Uh,
One
it's
time. It was
oh yeah, I dabbled and not very well at all. But you would spend a whole morning trying to figure out one thing, and then the waves would change, the break would change, and then what you'd learned 2 weeks ago would be entirely different. And yeah, I think farming is very much that same. Like, oh well, we're planting at a slightly different temperature, or we have a bit more moisture this season, or humidity's higher, or
Mhm.
we planted a week later than we did. All those other factors I think would line up with being an awful surfer.
Yeah, I think of it like explaining my mom will be like, why did this cake not turn out? And it's pretty easy to figure out why it didn't turn out. When she's like, why
Yep.
didn't my
Yep.
radish grow? I'm like, I mean,
Oh
there
my
could be
God.
1 million reasons why it didn't grow. It could be the soil, the weather, the light. And so there's all these different factors that make
Yep. Yep.
farming more challenged that way, but the agency is there. So when you both started your farms, was selling to restaurants kind of, I know Mike said maybe was kind of the initial intent. And how does had that changed over the past years? Go with Mike and then go to Cory.
Gotcha. So before Ever Oak Farm established back in 2019, I also had another urban farm. We were a multi-plot urban farm that was very crop focused, baby greens, baby root vegetables, primarily to restaurants. So after we decided to end that and I transitioned to Ever Oak, I was like, I'm going to continue that model, just selling to restaurants. And so 2019, going about it, growing all the baby greens, baby root vegetables, every color radishes are out there, keeping them in that perfect diameter that chefs want, around like a quarter, no larger than a 50 cents coin, Celtis and different chicories and color carrots and all that. And deal going through then 2019 and then 2020 hit. And even leading up before all the restaurants started closing down in 2020, dealing with chefs was always so sporadic. And it was getting to a point like, and I was enjoying it because I love that diversity. I love the culinary culture and continue servicing those chefs that are wanting to work with local ingredients. But yeah, it just started getting a little bit too much at time. I was like, I am too diverse, too everywhere. I'm not focused enough. Um, and yeah, I was just over the years, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna have chefs dictate what they want. I'm gonna be the one dictating. And it's no different than kind of tapping into that chef personality. Is like, hey, this is my menu. This is, you either accept it for what it is or not. And that's how I kind of started moving to the farm toward like, hey, this is my farm. This is an expression of myself. This is what's working in my context. So then over the years, I started really standing my ground on that and servicing that. And especially, with too many chefs that get excited at once and they want to buy everything and they're like, yeah, I'm into it. And then the reality comes and it's like, hey, I can't do that, or they're not ordering that. And because there's so many variables in working in restaurants as well. And that's just like there's so many variables with farms. And I with restaurants, knowing your food costs is the big thing. And local food and especially niche products tend to be at a higher dollar price. And if you don't have certain chefs that are able to navigate that and be able to work with it, then it's like I grow all this produce and then selling it directly to other consumers at farmers market. And some people, it's like, and Florida doesn't have a strong, or where we're at in Central Florida, it doesn't have a strong farming local culture. So having unique vegetables being presented in front of consumers, it's a little more intimidating, other than just growing a little bit more familiar looking vegetables that you typically would see in the grocery store. So like going towards that, I realized like I gotta move away from the fancy specialty niche stuff. And when 2020 happened too, and having a business model that specifically catered towards restaurant, at that point, I was like, man, this isn't sustainable. I have all my eggs in one basket. I need to diversify. And then I also had a point of reflection at that point that I'm like, you know what? Diversity builds resilience. I need to have multiple income streams. And at that point, that's where I started navigating and moving more towards the CSA and direct to consumer sales, and then having that balance of the restaurant. And the restaurants that I typically in the past enjoy working more so with was like the wholesome plant-based uh cafes and restaurants that they don't mind things being a little bit larger, or um, it doesn't have to be super uniform. And they also had the consistent volume there that they are able to service. But then during 2020, a lot of them end up shutting down. And I was like, man, it's like, no, I'm done servicing the restaurant. So I only now deal with a few chefs directly here and there. And so at one point when with Ever Oak Farm at the peak, we had 22 restaurants that we were servicing on a weekly basis. About 12 to 15 of them ordered. I would have about 12 to 15 of them order on a weekly basis, and some of them rotate a bit. And that inconsistency, because you're also at the mercy of the restaurant as well. So if they're slow, then you're not going to be able to move product through them. So it's kind of one of the things to be mindful about moving and building a business plan directly servicing restaurants. I
Yeah.
feel like as a small farm, I like the idea of having just a few restaurants that you build a good personal relationship and an understanding of like what you're able to truly follow through with. And if you have a bumper on something, to be able to text and be like, hey chef, can you do something with this? And to be able to them to say yes and then take those bumpers that you have. I don't know if I'm trailing off from the original question. I
Yeah.
actually no,
I
yeah.
think we'll like dive
Yeah,
into
yeah,
some themes you
yeah,
brought up. But
yeah.
yeah, Cory, how has your relationships changed from starting when you started off to now of selling to
Yeah, it's kind of ebbed and flowed with. I mean, I knew I always wanted to dive into that restaurant side of sales, but it was never going to be. It wasn't our primary sales objective from the get go. And we probably do. I think we're about 45% restaurant wholesale at this point, with the
Mhm.
rest being direct at the farmers market. And that's with like I think about 6 consistent weekly or biweekly accounts, and then about a dozen that we can, reach out to with if we have bumper crops or if market weather is looking sad and we need to kind of, you know, push those accounts a little bit harder, see if we can move some more product those ways. It's nice having those as a little bit of a savior in the background if we need. But yeah, as Mike had said, I think there's that handful of accounts that we've kind of really bonded with the last couple of years, built really quality relationships with those chefs. People that we can just call to each week if we're confused about what they're wanting or quantities. We can have an honest conversation quickly about, okay, that's what these are looking like. Can you move this many? Do you need less? Do you need more? But we're in Central Arkansas, and most of the accounts that we work with, their plate cost, they're selling food at the 25 to or less price point. We're not fine dining accounts here. So, I mean, most of what we're moving to restaurants is cut and wash lettuce mix,
Mhm.
simple root crops, leafy greens, things like that they can work into existing menus. We'll build some specials around things as we get into kind of peak summer seasons and whatnot. But our most success with these restaurants has been things that they're able to work in and have a higher quality product in at a decent price point for as much of the year as possible. And then if they're not able to source it from us, they can get something from Cisco, Benny Keith, whatever their large supplier is.
Yeah.
But
You've both talked a little bit about like the cost per plate or just, yeah, the like food costs for chefs, and that's what they're kind of balancing or kind of working against. And I think a lot of farmers are just like, well, I'm growing all this beautiful produce. Like, why wouldn't this local chef want to buy all the stuff that I have because it's like the best they could get and it's local and I'm sure that the chef also was like, yeah, I wish I could sell only local things. But could you put on your kind of transition to chef hat and explain a little bit about what are the challenges of buying from local farms?
Yeah, it's when it comes into food cost is one of your biggest things that could make and break your restaurant. And same thing with labor. Those are the two big factoring costs that make and break restaurants. So if you don't keep like your food costs at 30% or less, like you're not making money. And when you have a high price item that's coming from a local farm and to factor that in, that's where chefs need to know how to properly cost out their menu. And that's working with the right chef that actually knows their books and their numbers and to be able to do that. Like I said, because I have some chefs that keep a certain price point and it blows my mind. Like, man, how are you sourcing all these local ingredients and you're still making it work? Because you make it up in other things and just having a balanced menu. So those chefs that really know how to make a balanced menu of like one item costing like an 8% food cost, but then maybe you have that one menu item that has a little more local ingredients that's cost at maybe 35% and it kind of balances out. And that 8% item is able to kind of have that volume to kind of make up on that. So then in the overall the picture kind of balances out. So really understanding the restaurant that you're servicing and the chef that they have good management and planning skills.
Mhm.
Because yeah, that's the big thing. And then some chefs are just have this ideology of like, oh yeah, I love it, love it, love it. I want to do it, and they do it, and then the next thing you know, their restaurant doors closed. But
Yep.
which I've seen that a lot too. So yeah, those are just things to be mindful when working with restaurants, like the concept of what it is, like that. Like, are you working a over-the-counter cafe, or you're doing, are you servicing like a white tablecloth, refined dining
Yeah.
concept,
What
and
would be
like
a good
what,
way to
and yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like figure out or kind of suss out like if a chef has a good sense of
yeah.
like their
But
costs?
I can tell you more of the refined fine dining restaurants don't care for cut leafy greens. But the over-the-counter restaurant that's serving
Mhm.
salads and all that do, and they want that. So it's understanding which works. So obviously we all know that lettuce is a high value high money maker on all small scale farms, so to really service those restaurants that could want those leafy green salad versus the refined restaurants that they just want, they'll do salads but they're usually veg based salads of like shaved veggies or some sort of crudité wholesome vegetable base or a grain based little salad or something like that, not a leafy green salad. So there's a lot of little factors to understand of who you're targeting and building a relationship with. And also, those more refined restaurants don't buy volume because they take such a small quality and stretch it out, versus the over-the-counter restaurant is probably most likely doing volume, and that's where it's going to move, where you're really going to move some weight. So it's understanding that. So the scale of, whatever your context is will kind of help determine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corey, do you have thoughts to share on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like if a fine dining restaurant is putting up a carrot salad for dinner, they're going to have 2 ounces of carrot in that dish, and they're going to maybe do 100 to 200 covers if they're a busy restaurant. That means they're moving 10 pounds of carrots through their restaurant in the 4 or 5 days that they're running a dinner service. And if they're buying 7, 10 different items from your farm to justify, a $300 order, then that's quality. But if you have to push that across, 20 plus accounts that are only buying 10 pounds of each item, then that's a lot of touches. In the
Mhm.
restaurant world, if a dish has a ton of touches, that means you're
Mhm.
building a lot of components onto each plate. You're cooking, you're dressing, you're seasoning, all these different aspects of it. A high touch dish in a fine dining restaurant has to justify a higher price point. The same thing on the farm. If you have to really baby something in the greenhouse, then in the ground, then cultivate it, then really harvest it at a very specific time, take really great care when you're washing it, when you're packing it, deliver it at a specific temperature, specific
Mhm.
time, you need to be able to justify a high price point for that as well. But to be able to explain that to your customer as well and defend that typically. If you're the highest price point on that menu and the smallest amount of product that chef or restaurant is getting of their greater product mix, you're going to be the first thing that they're going to want to cut out of the menu. It's the
Yeah.
easiest thing to say, hey, like, I guess we can switch to getting that from someone else. It's not as good, but we don't have to get this one expensive item. And then suddenly something nasturtiums, if you've planted all this stuff thinking that you're going to be getting, a great return on this work that you put in and you're not, then you've taken all this risk and it sucks.
Yeah. 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 Corey's referring. We had a chat before we started about
Yeah.
I got a restaurant said they were going to buy a pound of nasturtiums a week. And so I planted, I think, like 150 feet of nasturtiums, which, if you don't know, flowers you have to pick weekly at minimum. So they keep coming back. And they ended up not buying any. And so I was just kind of out of luck. And so that's always, yeah, something kind of be aware of is like, could you have an agreement or could
Yeah.
you, what kind of, how to build that relationship and trust with somebody when your planning as a farmer starts so much earlier, and they're kind of might be making more decisions on the fly. Um, I think I've
And
heard from, oh, good.
yeah, you said that so well because I think about that as well. Because some chefs like, hey, can you do this or maybe navigate? It was like, yeah, it takes me time to be able to switch that. Like, are you sure? Because then this is something I have to plan weeks and months out to be able to follow through with the products. And also just bringing education awareness to chefs because some chefs get it and they understand and they study and they dedicate their career to working with local ingredients. And then some chefs just kind of do it because it's trendy, it attracts people into it, and they're just capitalizing on that movement. And but they don't fully grasp what goes into it. So it's also making sure the chefs you're working with are educated on that or open to being educated and working with that and understanding like this stuff takes time to plan. Like it's not just like you can call your Cisco rep tomorrow and be like, hey, I need this, and immediately shows up. It's like, no, I need 2, 3 months now to move and navigate towards making this happen to you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think in fairness to that restaurant was that the nasturtiums were
Hmm.
be used in a drink, and I think the bar manager there was a new the switch. So the bar manager that
Um,
had made that kind of agreement with me, they left, and then there was a new person that
mm,
didn't know about it, and I didn't know about that until I started to reach out, and I was like,
yeah.
this is a different person now. So
Yeah, and
that can
restaurants
be
do have high
tricky.
turnover
I
rates,
turn
and
over.
they do have high turnovers. Some
Yeah.
restaurants do.
But I was gonna say that I think another thing I hear from chefs is that they, your day is just packed and you're trying to keep track of all these different things. And if you're trying to support all these local farms, that's like instead of just going to Cisco or US Foods, that's one place you're doing your ordering. Now you're ordering from 20 different people and you're just like maybe some are text, maybe some are emails, and it's just like way too much to try to maybe they come on Wednesday, maybe they come on Thursdays. So yeah, what's your kind of feeling both as a chef or a farmer as far as
Yeah.
like coordinating
That
deliveries, sales, and things like that?
Yeah, that I've actually experienced and heard numerous of times, and even working in restaurants, like working with chefs, and like you're reaching out to 5, 10 different farmers, different reps. It's a lot to maintain. It's like a whole nother job on its own. On top of that, managing the kitchen and everything else going in and managing your books and your numbers. I actually worked with one restaurant. They actually hired someone specifically to just take care of sourcing. So if they're able to work it into their staff and justify paying it, like they end up still being a server, but that server had an extra role, like they're working in the front of the house aspect of it, but their extra role was like the forager. So they worked and coordinated with other farms and with the chefs. So the chefs, they don't understand the menu, quantities, and then they do the coordination well and pass it to them to do it. So that's one way to around it. But the reality is that's very, very rare. And
Hmm.
that's a very special situation. Yeah, I think that's the problem that most chefs counter is just the management of ordering. Like I have to text this for individual, I have to text that, or if some farms now want certain platforms, so now I have to go on that platform and do that ordering there other than doing the text. Because I've also experienced that too of switching like text messaging like 20 different chefs, which is a lot on my end because now I'm spending half a morning texting and coordinating and talking to chefs. And then when you transition into something that's a more efficient, like, hey, my inventory, everything's there. It's so hard for them to be like going there. And I understand because it's like you're juggling a lot anyways. Um, so I don't know, man. That's why it becomes down to the chefs themselves and how they manage it. Like there's it's a balancing act, and you just have to see what do you prioritize, what gives you what's the most value, what represents yourself and the restaurant and the message you're trying to get across, and what you want to bring to your customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, Corey, what are your thoughts on kind of organizing all those variables?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've been on both sides of that equation of receiving text, email, and other order forms, or at different times throughout the week, juggling all those different delivery dates,
mm,
trying to educate kitchen managers and sous chefs on who they're sourcing what from each week, trying to work from the farmer side of trying to explain to a new kitchen manager that the quantity that they're ordering is not consistent and probably not going to achieve their par, things like that. But I guess the biggest thing I've realized is just acknowledging that that hurdle exists and then having to say, okay, well, is this account going to be worth that effort to kind of get over that burden? Are they kind of meeting me halfway? Am I having to explain myself too much? Am I like,
Mhm.
what are all the factors going into this that kind of, make it a wash, make it net positive, or if it's just too much work? And that changes kind of throughout the season sometimes. There's not a clear answer on it, but I think knowing like, okay, this is that chef's Monday. If I get my order list to them consistently at 9 a.m. before they get into their huge prep list, then I'm gonna get a text back quickly. But if I drop the ball this week and I don't get it to them until they're already into lunch service, then I'm gonna have to hound them and figure out a different way to make sure that we get as large of an order as I want to count on them for each week.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that there's more and more different like platforms that people, maybe like several different farms could all list on one platform and then it could make it a little bit more seamless, but then you're still having to train all these different people to use that platform, which is another a hurdle. But I like that kind of way of thinking that like there are just hurdles that exist in selling to restaurants
Yeah.
and like finding what works. Because yeah, Mike kind of goes into my next question of like what is yeah, Mike, you've already said you've made like, this is what I sell, take it or leave it. Also, like I'm going to work with the chefs that I want to work with. And so like what is that kind of ideal partnership look like?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a balance because if I'm growing a product that no one has any interest of buying it, well, why grow it? So to figure out where the market and what chefs want to do. Um, yeah, I think it's a balance. It's a balancing act. And it's just at the end of the day, I'm all about community relationships. And it just got to the point if I'm working with a restaurant, we're going to build a relationship. I'm going to go to your restaurant and you're going to come to my farm. And if you can't take the time to go to my farm, then I don't want to take the time to work with you. It's just the reality. I just to kind of show it so they can get a full scope of what we're doing and working with and to see like, oh yeah, I want to support this, or okay, I get it. Yeah, this might not fit or align that. So it's just to kind of yeah, just to get through that. But luckily the restaurants I do work with, and the one main restaurant that I work a lot with, is the name of the restaurant is Kai. I'll just put it out there. And it's a modern Filipino type restaurant. And they even say the most Filipino thing to do is cook what's in your backyard. So it makes it easy. So whatever I'm in abundance and I have of, the chef knows how to do it. And in working with chefs that understand technique and understanding like, okay, I can take this ingredient and utilize this technique and sub this produce out because it's going to give me this because this is what's available in my area. And especially chefs that are trying to thrive for sustainability within their restaurant and within environmental aspect of it and sourcing, like trying to keep things close as possible to those restaurants. So building those relationships and those education and having those education talks with
Mhm.
them. So yeah, I think education, awareness, and relationship. That's my key to working with that. And I think at the end of the day, less is more. And I rather just do that at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Corey, what's
Yeah.
your kind of ideal restaurant partner look like?
Yeah, I think someone that you have a solid relationship with. I think being a chef or being a farmer, you both have a huge responsibility as far as your local food system goes. That if you're committed to supplying local restaurants or you're committed to buying from local farmers, then the pathway is there to build and to grow and to better support each other. So the
Mhm.
best relationship that I have with a chef, they've got two restaurants now, a cafe style place called the Root Cafe in Little Rock, and it's a relationship that another farmer here locally, 5 Acre Farm, he introduced me to them, and together we supply as much of their weekly lettuce needs as we can throughout the season. And that chef will also reach out if he's looking for something obscure. So it's nice to be able to help them source things, but if we're able to really kind of meet their demand ourselves, that's great. But kind of knowing like, oh, we don't have quite enough, but I know so and so can also help meet this order. We're thankfully in a place here where, thinking back to my time in California, you know, there's no gatekeeping or competition here in our food system, which is I'm grateful to be a part of it on this way. And you know, it's not going to be the same for a more populated um, food ecosystem like probably North Carolina or even potentially Florida, but you know, the coast, anything like that. But so it's nice that someone wants to buy as much as they can from me. I know that me helping another small farmer out move a little bit that way, it's not going to negatively impact my relationship. It's going to support, give them another farmer to reach out to for other things in the future, and it's going to just further enrich that relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
Yeah.
love that.
Um, I like the consistency, I think is a good theme on both sides.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
appreciated you bringing up like I like the idea of like the chef has the responsibility of coming to the farm. And I've
Mm-hmm.
also been marinating on the idea of the touches that you brought up, Cory, because that's something I think about a lot is that I just, yeah, when I think about selling to chefs, I always think about the kitchen work that goes into getting a carrot from when you plop it out of the ground to a plate. And there's a lot that happens there. Or like scallions is one that I'm always like in the field. You could spend a ton of time trimming the roots and peeling it off and making sure it's really clean. When I sold to chefs, I would even like put stuff in deli containers so they could just like if it was really clean, they'd go right into their system, right in the fridge, they could pull it out. But that's so many touches on my end than that or kitchen work as I describe it as like, there's farm work and then it starts to be like you're processing, you're trimming, you're cleaning. So who's paying for the kitchen work? Am I having to charge higher or am I going to sell something that's really dirty and then they're going to pay a lower price, but then they're going to have to pay for all the kitchen work?
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I don't know. There's so many fun factors to think about, and I think that the theme I'm seeing here is just like really getting to know who you're selling to and being like, what is going to work for them? What's the final product going to look like? Are they going to be able to buy volume? Do they understand seasons? Do they have a menu that changes throughout the season, or is it one fixed menu all year long? Just really getting to know
Yep.
who you're selling to. Um, I think people when they start out, or I don't know, farmers who might be like listening might be like, I'd love to like find someone to sell to because it is great to have, if you have like a huge abundance of a bumper crop, to be like, someone could use this to make something like a soup. How do I even start selling to chefs? Do you have any kind of advice on how to start building those relationships?
Y- Yeah, my thought is to do the research on the restaurant and the chefs that you want to service and understand their concept, understand their menu if it fits into yours. Then the next best thing is after you do your homework and research, to figure out if they're open for lunch, if not dinner, find the time that they're going to be having some downtime so you're able to kind of come show up there with a product sheet, some product samples, and just introducing yourself. It's what the sales reps do for all the big things, all the big sales reps for like Cisco, Cheney Brothers, US Food, whatever. They got reps that come in, talk to them, to be professional about it. Like, hey, here's our delivery schedule. This is the product, da da da, and just strike the conversation with them, and then build that relationship. And then obviously they're not gonna. It takes a while for even chefs to start considering because they're so used to their ways. They have the routine and rhythm. There's a lot of moving parts to their kitchen. So to be patient with them. And I also recommend kind of starting a little bit of these relationships before your season is in full throttle as well, to get them prepared. Because like I said, it's going to take a while for those chefs to really, okay, let me give this farm a try. Um, but I think at the end of the day, what works best with me and my big success is always having a relationship with the chefs. And then not only building a relationship with the chefs, but also really building a relationship with their kitchen staff, because eventually one of those guys are going to leave that kitchen and go somewhere else. And they're going to talk about, hey, I worked with this farm at this place. You should reach out and check them out, XYZ. And then eventually that chef's reaching out to you. And then you meet up and see if it lines up. And then you start conducting business from there.
Mm-hmm.
So but timing, research, understanding the concept and their context, and making sure it all aligns. So,
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about what would be on that product sheet you would bring?
product sheet. when I used to drop off product sheet, I would do a whole list of what products I have, prices, and the availability of the season. So I'll do a full scope so they could understand, like, okay, so I have this crop growing from October to January. I have this crop growing from February to June, XYZ. So that they could also have something to refer to that they could also plan. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So summer or whatever, we're about to go into, it's February now, and I'm planning my menu for spring. So what's this farm is going to have throughout March and whatnot. Okay, cool. Here's this product sheet that XYZ that shows like, okay, cool. This is, they should be expecting this product by then. So now I could also plan it. So that helps those chefs know, like, okay, cool. I'm gonna source zucchini from your farm because you're gonna have it from March until May in my context. And they have better planning. So that's, and then also deliver your way of ordering, if it's through text message or email, and your delivery days and your cutoff time. So that product sheet also has all the details of your ordering process, whatever that may be. And so
yeah, that's huge. That's such an organized way to show up, and you're not just saying like, "Hey, buy vegetables from me." You're like,
yeah,
"What I have. This is how you order it."
and to have
Taking the
that
questions
physical
out.
document that they could
Yeah.
refer as well. I think as time goes on, everyone tries to keep everything digital, and as time goes on, I keep trying to bring things into a physical because there's so much distraction. As soon as that chef picks up their phone, they're going to be deterred so many ways. So let me give you a physical paper document that's in here that has no distraction, and it's just straightforward.
Yeah,
So
like laminate it. They're probably
yeah,
in it up in their office, and then they'll
yeah.
be looking up at it. I've been toying around with a stoplight system where I'll send like a weekly email, and then I'll say like, this is yellow is like coming into season, green is in season, then red is going out of season. So it's like you're kind
That's
of
beautiful.
know what your shoulders
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
Like if you want to make a special, like make it on something that's in yellow because it's going to be hitting, and then red is kind of out. So lots of different ways to communicate. But yeah, I like that the physical sheet is awesome. Cory, what would be your advice to getting going with restaurants?
Yeah, I think that's all great advice. Also, make sure you have your contact information on there, as well as any delivery fees or order minimum costs. Getting those awkward conversations out of the way from the get-go is super important, and things I wish I'd done better with our
Yeah.
early account.
What would be your minimum for doing a delivery?
For Little Rock, so that's an hour from us, where the majority of our restaurants are. We don't have a delivery minimum, but we charge a $10 delivery fee. So our larger accounts, they don't really care about that delivery fee when they're doing a $300 plus order. But we try to do at least $500 to $1,000 per delivery run.
Mm-hmm.
And then having that delivery fee worked in my mind, kind of encourages larger orders or discourages and gives a negative impact to ordering small orders. If someone's willing to eat a $10 delivery fee to get $15 worth of radishes, then I'll happily deliver to them. But if they want to pay $25 for 5 bunches of radishes, then they might have some other things that they need to figure out. But I think, yeah, do your research. You really get to know what this restaurant concept is. And social media has been a huge thing for me to do that research and understand those restaurants and those chefs' personal accounts, perhaps, that are more into figuring out seasonal and special dishes. And then those chefs then follow the farm and want to understand your growing practices, what you're doing, want to see what you're doing. They become invested in the farm before you've even walked in the door, potentially. So yeah, I think showing up and showing those chefs that you're there, you're professional, you're willing to just be there and learn about what they are proud of doing, and that you are prepared to show them what you're proud to be bringing to them as well. If you just show up with, 60 pounds of something that you have surplus of, that you have after the farmer's market, that's not the best introduction. Like something that's out on the table all day already. It's like, maybe someone wants this if you've got a long-standing relationship with them and they want to buy your market second. But if that's your introduction to this new restaurant, they might not have the best, most professional understanding of everything that you're putting into bringing to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, share this. I heard Jesse Frost on No-Till Growers mention, which I thought was great advice. That's like, when you're starting a farm, you could really use some extra cash. Maybe pick up a serving job at a couple local restaurants that you think you might work with, and then you'll get to know those people. You'll get to see how the restaurant runs and get like an interest, like an understanding of the rhythms. And then you're probably going to become friends with them working, and then you kind of build those relationships that way. So if you got, some extra hours after farming day, go become a
I've got a
server.
buddy. I've got a buddy that started working at the produce department of a local food co-op, and that introduced him to both the other buyers there at the produce co-op and to all the other farmers delivering as well. So that was a great introduction for him
Yeah,
as he was getting his farm established.
that's so cool.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we're kind of winding up, but I'll end it on kind of question of like, what do you wish chefs knew more about farming or farmers in general?
I think farmers understanding the seasonality here in Central Florida, we have such a unique season to it that they assume like everyone's so conditioned. We have so many northerners that have migrated to here in South to Florida, and our seasons are so different. Like example, our strawberry season is from January to April.
Hmm.
And I said, so, but yet farmers or chefs want to start putting strawberries. If you want to work with local strawberries, then they're like, hey, can I get strawberries in May? It's like, no, man, that's past due. It's like understanding the true seasonality of certain things and not to go off of what's happening outside, but to be really focused in your climate, your zone. I think that's the big thing is that seasonality or if they're really pushing towards wanting to be local and sustainable and they're introducing an ingredient that can't grow here, it's like, hey, that doesn't represent what we got going on in Florida. So and then agricultural practice as well, that the impact, I don't know, I can get real deep because then I rag on restaurants and their fryer oil. It's like the most low quality fryer oil. And it's like, dude, it's if you understand the agricultural practice of it, what it goes into producing your soy-based oil and and the additives in there. And so you have all this high quality fine produce, but then you have the lowest quality fryer oil and you're supporting this big ag and you're talking about wanting to support more local. And so at the end of the day, you got to choose your battle. And I'm just nitpicking on the little things, but it's just like understanding that the decisions and the stuff that you bring into the kitchen of what environmental and health aspect does that have on not only your customers, but the people that produce those goods and being more intentional about it. That's it. But then at the end of the day, it's a business. You got bills to pay, and you just being mindful about that. So I also understand having that balance and awareness.
Hmm.
So seasonality and just awareness of all the goods and packaging that are in your restaurant or products that are within your restaurant. So,
Definitely. Yeah, that's
yeah.
a great. Yeah, thinking about the impact of every ingredient, you can really start to go down a rabbit hole when you think of, yeah, down to your fryer
I've
oil.
g- I've gone too many rabbit holes and it's just like yeah, how intertwined and everything is.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's another talk and rant.
Cory, what do you wish chefs knew more about farming?
Yeah, I think just appreciating seasonality as a whole, but also just the intricacies of specific weather events and the impacts that those have on, things months down the road. One severe rain event like the massive flooding we had last spring here in Arkansas and in North Carolina, that impacted crops throughout the entire summer. We were battling weed pressure on things that we would never have had in the past because all of our topsoil washed away.
Mhm.
But just appreciating the effort and the labor that goes into bringing you these crops grown the way that we're trying to grow them at the price point that we need to sell them at. We don't walk into a restaurant and nitpick the price that you have a dish listed at. So,
Mhm.
respect the prices that we need to bring to you to pay ourselves, to pay our team, to continue doing this. Because I think the second we start fighting each other to, make one side of the operation supposedly more sustainable, and we're negatively impacting the farm's ability to be sustainable, then the whole system starts to really struggle at that point, which is what we've all been doing for years and years. So we just got to make sure we're constantly building each other up. So.
Yeah. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of follow, like, end it on talking about like the sustainability of these products. Like, how has your CNG certification kind of helped you have those conversations with chefs, if at all?
Uh, for me, because my farm's always been transparent at
Hmm.
all, the certification was just more so because I really love what CNG does and bringing awareness to CNG and
Hmm.
supporting that. A lot of the chefs at the end of the day that I've worked with doesn't ever care if it's organic or not. Some chefs don't even care if it's conventional and it's hyper sprayed. Some of
Hmm.
them are just like, give me a good quality product that I could put on a plate. So that's, but then I've worked with some chefs and I've worked with organic cafes that they appreciate that. So that's where it's understanding your customer, the context of the chefs and the restaurant and see what they value more. Because some chefs don't care how it's grown. You can nuke it with every single synthetic out there as long as it looks pretty and it's priced right, I'll take it. And then some chefs actually do like, oh yeah, how is this grown? How is this cared for? So yeah, that just depends.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Corey, do you have any experience with that or thoughts on
Yeah,
it?
we've had experiences kind of across the gamut there as far as people's um, dedication to CNG organic practices. But I've felt that CNG is something that's really easy to articulate to a chef who's then able to translate that to their service staff and then to their customers, that they see Firelight Farm on a menu, then they're easy to say, like, yeah, this is a certified naturally grown farm. They didn't use any synthetic herbicides or pesticides. They're using minimal tillage practices, yada, yada, yada. We've got our bullet points that CNG has really helped to kind of hone in and translate to our local customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always
That
dream
is
of the
awesome.
day where maybe the US could take on a system they have in Denmark. I know of, I'm sure maybe other countries as well, but in Denmark, obviously we're familiar with the Michelin star system of like rating restaurants, but they have an organic star system. So you get like a bronze, silver, gold O, which is like the organic logo, depending on how much percentage of your product is actually organic that you sell. And that has become like the symbol that the chefs in like Copenhagen really like search out, is they want the golden O to show that. I was like, ah, if only we could have that here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I love
cool.
that.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
have heard about that.
we'll start a grassroots grassroots form, but maybe one day. Well, thank you so much. This has
Yep.
been a truly rich conversation. I think gives a lot of folks a lot to think about. Awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
thank you, Aaron. Nice to meet you, Mike. This is great.
Yep. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
I really
Pleasure,
want to
y'all.
just, I wish I could step to the screen and go to Mike's garden where it
Yeah.
has this like beautiful backdrop of the banana trees, and
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I want to
yeah.
go to there.
2 months back in February, it didn't look like this. We experienced the most extreme winter. Now everything is popping. It's like
Yeah.
nothing happened. Oh
Cool.
yeah.
Well, thank you both. I'll let you get
Yeah.
back to
Thank you,
the
guys.
gardens.
Yeah.
All right. That was such a great conversation with Mike and Corey. I really appreciated hearing more about the chef's perspective and understanding the challenges they're up against when it comes to managing their price points to ensure they stay in business, but echoing that with the importance of chefs really needing to understand what it takes to keep a farm in business to make sure each part of the food system remains sustainable. Keep your ears open for more Field Note episodes to come. We really want this podcast to be a resource for folks, so do not hesitate to reach out if you have thoughts on a host or a topic you'd like to hear more about. We're excited to be building our library of episodes, so head over to Spotify and YouTube to listen to our past conversations. And as always, if you're interested in learning more about certified naturally grown or in certifying your farm, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly with any questions. You can contact me at erin@naturallygrown.org. That's ERIN at naturallygrown.org. And lastly, we want to send a huge thank you to the fine folks over at Earth Tools for making this episode possible. Earth Tools offers farmer-tested, high-quality walk-behind tractors and attachments built for small-scale, diversified farms. Rooted in decades of hands-on experience growing in food and selling to local markets, they prioritize durable equipment, practical versatility, and exceptional service. Their tools are designed to maximize efficiency without large-scale investment, making them a trusted resource for market growers and homesteaders looking to work smarter. So visit earthtools.com to find tools that will make your life a whole lot easier. And stay tuned for more CNG Field Notes coming to your ears real soon.